Hello and welcome to another episode with the Toronto Dogcast, the podcast for dog lovers. And with me today, I have Megan, and we are going to be talking about everything to do with dog adoptions, specifically senior dog adoptions, which is something very near and dear to my heart because I have a senior dog and I just love it. So we're going to be talking about all things adoption, rescues, what to look for, what not to look for. We're going to be answering some of your questions that came in from social media on dog adoptions and senior dog adoptions specifically. I'm going to introduce my lovely guest. Thank you so much. Megan is like literally a saint because we are, this is the first time we're attempting a podcast recording remotely. So, Megan, can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm from Tennessee, and I've been adopting seniors for over a decade now. So I've learned quite a bit. I also do senior advocacy and senior programs at the shelter I volunteer at.
In terms of Tennessee, now I'm not familiar with the rescue or shelter constructs in the U.S. specifically or in Tennessee. Can you give us a bit of a background in terms of like what the shelters are like?
If you're talking about humane societies, rescues, shelters, rescues here are much stricter when they're doing potential adoptions. Like they'll do home visits, they'll call your vet, they'll want personal references of people who have seen you interact with your dogs and, the past. Shelters are, in general, a bit more lackadaisical, and that is partially because in the South, we have a huge overpopulation problem. We actually bus dogs up north and to Canada where they don't have as many. We actually have too many. So down here, especially, it is not super hard to adopt a dog. They basically want to hear you're not going to let it roam free, you're not going to neglect it and abuse it, and that's kind of their main requirements. You do have to usually do, if you have another dog, you would have to do, a meet and greet with the other dog, but even any other animals in the house, they don't require that. Shelters are very liberal, rescues not quite as much.
That's a really good point. So in more temperate climates, like in the southern U.S., there's a lot more volume of dogs that end up in shelters or rescues or things like that. And I think it's an important distinction to understand for people who are looking to adopt that there are different sets of rules and expectations for every different organization. So there isn't one way of saying, okay, this particular shelter will let you take a dog home, like no problem. But this rescue, you have to go through a very lengthy interview process, fill out an application, provide references, that kind of thing. I think that's an important thing for a lot of people who are going to adopt for the first time, or maybe even not for the first time, because like in reality, if you are like me, I adopted my dogs like several years ago, things change. Be wary in terms of like understanding that every place will have its own set of rules and regulations, and adoption processes will vary greatly depending on where you're going. Okay. Before you go to an actual shelter or a rescue to adopt a dog, Megan, what do you think are the things that a family should do? And when I say family, I just mean like a group of people who live together, whether it be an individual or a family with kids or a couple or whatever. It doesn't really matter. What would your advice be for those particular individuals who are thinking, okay, I want to adopt a dog because it's COVID, right? So the elephant in the room is COVID is causing a lot of people to stay at home, obviously. And because people are at home a lot more, it's natural that they're like, okay, now is a good time to get a dog. Megan, what would your advice be for those particular individuals who are thinking about even adopting? So before they even go to a shelter or rescue or anything like that, what should those individual people those families to think about before getting to that point where they're going to an actual shelter?
Yeah, like you said, I think it's really important to think about that because you don't know what you're looking for if you haven't sort of thought about your life. The first thing I would suggest is think about your lifestyle. Do you travel a lot? Do you have to move, from city to city a lot? Are you kind of a homebody? Do you like to go on 5-mile runs every day? Do you have a lively house? Maybe you have roommates, versus you can always control your situation if you live alone or just, with one other person. That's kind of the biggest key because that should sort of start to narrow down the types of dogs or the age of dogs that you might be looking for. The next thing I would say is very important, and this happens a lot in the shelter community when we're trying to adopt out a dog, is if you have children and if they are little, if a family comes in with 2 toddlers and they want to adopt this big, huge, rambunctious hyper dog, I'm not going to be in favor of that most likely because that dog's going to accidentally knock one of those children over, and then we have the dog back at the shelter. The other thing I would suggest is when you're thinking about breeds, because you can get just about any breed you want through a breed-specific rescue. So a lot of times people say, well, I really wanted, a poodle. There's lots of poodle rescues out there. So one of the other things to think about when you think of a breed is how much do you want to spend a year on care, on grooming, on certain food. Certain breeds are more high maintenance with that sort of thing, and you're going to spend more money and time. So those are kind of the 3 things I would say are the most important to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. The most important thing is your lifestyle. Understanding how a dog is going to fit into your lifestyle is super important. To your point, Megan, your activity level is going to be way up there. Also, how much time do you have? If you work a 60-hour week and you're traveling and that kind of thing, time is going to be an issue. And because you're making a commitment of several years, we're talking, the average lifespan of a dog is maybe between 8 and 15 years on average. Making the decision during COVID is one thing, but understanding that that dog is going to be with you after COVID happens. So understanding how your lifestyle may change in the future. Obviously, if you're expecting or if you're planning a family, those changes will happen when the dog is still there. So your lifestyle is probably the most important consideration to make. How much time you have is also really important. And to your point, I think down that list is, financial responsibility is going to play into that as well. And again, different adoption agencies or rescues or shelters are going to have different fees in terms of healthcare, all those types of things are really important. The lifestyle thing, I think, is going to fit really well into this whole senior dog adoption thing. Most people who say, okay, I want to go get a dog, whether they adopt from a shelter or they go to a breeder or a rescue, they're thinking puppy, Megan, right? And puppy life, that's a tough one. So I talk about puppy life because I forget what puppy life is about until you experience it again. So let's talk about puppy life because that's the most traditional approach, and that's going to be the thing that is most attractive to the average dog lover. So Megan, do you remember what puppy life is about?
I have had one puppy in my life and I will never do it again. So yes, I remember vividly because I'm still scarred to this day on having to get up every 2 hours to let it go to the bathroom.
Yeah, they have the tiniest bladders on earth. And if you have carpet or whatever, oh boy, puppies love that kind of stuff. So puppy life is really difficult. Now, the good side of COVID, if there is one out there, and there are always silver linings to every crisis, but one of the silver linings is that people are now working from home almost exclusively, and that allows them the time and the energy and the availability to take care of a puppy. A lot of people might have been waiting to get a dog. Now that COVID has provided them with that opportunity to work from home, they're saying, okay, well, I can take out a dog every 2 hours. What else is there to consider when you're talking about the traditional approach and you're looking at like, okay, taking care of house training is going to be like top on that list, but what other considerations? What else does puppy life have for the average dog lover?
I do think puppy life has some pros, maybe not for me, but for lots of people. You get them for as long as possible, right? If they're really young, then you get to have them their entire life, which is what we all want. We want as much time with our animals as possible. The other thing is that, and this is something I found, I never thought about it when I was adopting, but being an advocate and an adoption counselor, I have a lot of people really want to know the background of their animal. They want to know where they came from. They want to know if they've had, certain experiences. And again, a puppy, that's really easy to do. The puppies have one experience. The other thing that's really good is if you are wanting a dog that is very active. So say you want a dog that goes on hikes and walks and will play out in the back with your family. It is easier to find that in a puppy or a young dog than it is with a senior. There are plenty of seniors that would love to do that, but the options are more limited.
Right. Okay. So when we're talking about choosing the right dog for your lifestyle now and in the future, I think what a lot of people do is they look at a certain size or breed of a dog and say, okay, well, my lifestyle would work best with a Labrador or something like that. Whereas what you're saying is age is actually more of a gauge to fit your lifestyle rather than the size or the breed, right? So if you think about, let's take my dog, for example. Mosley is 14. He's going to be 14 in a few days, actually. And he's like the poster boy for senior dogs because he's a very handsome boy. Very handsome. So Mosley went through lots of different stages in his life. When he was young, and I got him as a puppy, he was going 24 hours a day. Like unbelievable energy. It was exhausting. Later on in life, he mellowed out. I would say probably around between 5, 6 years old, he started to slow down just a little bit. Now that he's almost 14, he is much, much slower. He's not really, he might do the odd jog here and there when he's playing, but he's not really going to like move very quickly. Over the span of a dog's life cycle, they will fit into your lifestyle differently. And I think that's a really interesting revelation in terms of what people are considering, because a lot of people will say, well, I have a very active lifestyle, so I want a very athletic dog, which is great. But basically, almost any young dog, regardless of breed, is going to be very energetic and provide lots and lots of opportunities to be active. So we talked about young dogs and we talked about fitting a dog into your lifestyle or considering your lifestyle before you even start looking for a dog. And if you're very active, if you're an avid jogger, if you like going on hikes, a young dog is going to fit really well into that. Let's talk about the senior dogs in terms of like who would be a great fit in terms of like a family for a more senior dog.
I'll use your example of a middle-aged person. Let's say you have you work 40 plus hours a week. You like to take mile-long leisurely walks a couple times a week, or you would be happy tossing a ball for 5 to 30 minutes every once in a while. Then I'm not going to suggest you get a 2-month-old Weimaraner. That's not going to fit your lifestyle. To me, this is one of the biggest things with seniors is it's easier for seniors to kind of fit into your life versus you having to, with a puppy, they kind of dictate the schedule.
They take over.
When they need to go, what now?
They take over. basically. So listen, if you've never had a puppy before, they will take over your life. Having a puppy is all encompassing. It dominates almost every aspect of your life. The amount of effort and attention and care that goes into a puppy is astonishing. It's pretty much 24/7.
Yes.
Would you agree?
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, which is not necessarily bad for me. So you know what my favorite kind of puppy is? Somebody else's puppy. My favorite kind of puppy. You want a puppy? Go visit somebody else's puppy. It's amazing. You can play with them. You can
smell them. They have that great puppy breath.
And take pictures for Instagram.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, put like little like bandanas on them and stuff, and like just watch them do the cutest thing, and then you go home.
And you go home and you sleep the entire night through.
Exactly. So you're not getting up at 2:00 in the morning to take that little puppy out so they can relieve their bladder, and then at 4:00 and at 6:00, right? So let's say I am somebody who wants to adopt a dog. What do you think of somebody saying, okay, if you want to get, let's say, a puppy or a young dog, then you should experience a young puppy or a young dog before you make the decision to adopt your own? What would you say to that?
I love that idea. I think that would be a great way to actually see if you're cut out for it. Because if you spend 2 weeks with the puppy and you can't handle it, you know you're not going to make it for the next 6 months.
Get some experience as an idea in terms of like, try before you buy. Think about it this way. You're going to have a dog for its whole life, whatever that is. And it's important to understand the level of commitment that goes into adopting a dog. It's a big decision. It's a big life decision. Think about it more in terms of like adoption of somebody into your family, right? It's going to change everything for many, many years. And it's very hard to predict what life changes are going to happen. Maybe you get a new job, maybe you have a family, maybe you get married, maybe somebody's allergic to your dog, so on and so forth. Trying it out is going to give you a realistic understanding of what life is going to be like with a dog. And nobody is going to be able to advise you in terms of like what that's going to be like. Like Megan, you and I could sit here and try to describe what it's like to people until we're blue in the face, which, look, my shirt is blue, okay? I'm not going to go to that length. But the idea is, like, I don't know your schedule. I don't know your routines. Maybe you think you're athletic and active, but in reality, you just like chilling out on the couch. I don't know those things. But if you get a dog, let's say your family has a dog, your friends have a dog, somebody that you know at work has a puppy, and you're like, hey, I would love to puppy sit because I'm thinking about getting a puppy. And so can I puppy sit for a weekend or a week or something like that, just to get an idea of what it's like? So one of the things that I do for people who are considering getting a dog for the first time is I will lend them my dogs, because my dogs are easy. They don't have any issues. They're perfectly chill and relaxed. And it's a good way to get somewhat of an experience of what it's going to be like. But you do want to be as prepared as possible. Yes?
Yes. The other thing you can do, and this is actually what I would suggest if you're probably going to adopt a dog, is you can foster. You can be approved to foster through multiple organizations. For example, I have 4 different organizations that I foster through. Puppies are usually one of the big things we need fosters for if they're too young to be adopted out yet. Or if you're wanting, like a 1 to 2 year old dog, well, then you can say, I'd like to foster a 1-year-old dog or a 2-year-old dog. So I would say fostering would be great too if you don't know anyone who, has the age of dog you're thinking of getting.
So when you're talking about fostering, you can have what's called the foster fail. Megan. Tell
Yes.
tell the audience what a foster fail is, because it's not as bad as it sounds.
No, foster fail is like the best kind of fail possible. It's when you welcome an animal into your home to foster it, which is always temporary. Fostering is never meant to be forever. And foster families pick if they want to do shorter term or longer term. For example, I've had a foster for up to 1.5 years before she got adopted. I've also had a foster for 3 days. So let's say you're, wanting to foster a dog and you guys are kind of normally, like no more than 3 months, because we don't know what our life will be like. A foster fail would be after those 3 months, you decide that dog is meant to be a member of your family and you adopt it officially. So that dog has failed out as a foster because it's not going to be adopted to anyone else, but you win the prize because you get to keep the dog forever.
And it's also a way to support your local shelters and rescues. There's a lot of benefit to fostering. Now, we're not going to get into a lot of fostering because we could have a whole podcast on fostering. However, I will tell you that most fosters through an organization will provide food, they will provide healthcare, and they will provide support for the foster families that are taking care of that dog. And if it is a dog that you become attached to and do want to go through the adoption process, then that's an option as well. So there's a lot of flexibility. You're not going to overcommit and make a huge decision without experiencing it first. You're going to be supporting your local shelters and rescues. So one of the questions that we got from the Instagrams is about, okay, well, what if I'm a first-time dog lover, owner? I hate that word, owner. But I'm looking to adopt a dog for a first time, but all these rescues and shelters are looking for experience. And I keep on getting rejected, or my applications are getting rejected because I don't have experience with dogs. Fostering is a great way to gain experience with a dog. Guess what, people? So fostering is going to pretty much tick every single box in terms of allowing people the most kind of gentlest approach to adopting a dog.
I mean, you're going to get the most bang for your buck for the lowest amount of commitment.
Okay, there you go.
Because
so if you're
it's not going to take...
If you're a commitment phobe, not me at all. I'm very much all about commitment. When it comes to dogs, anyway.
I was gonna say you've had a family member, for 14 years. That's a very long relationship you've had.
The relationship that I've had with my dogs is by far the longest I've ever been involved with anyone. But having a dog is a very, very special relationship, and it's different from every other relationship that you're going to have, whether it's your brother, your sister, your mother, your husband, your wife, your lover, your parents, grandparents, whatever, your friends. It's completely different. It is a very special bond and a very special relationship. And I can't even put it into words, but it is amazing. So that's the thing. So I would encourage anybody who's interested in adopting a dog to foster and to do their due diligence, because it is such a huge decision. And if it goes wrong, what happens, Megan? Because in Canada, it's obviously a lot different than the States. Because we want to be as fair as possible in the podcast, and we want to talk about not just all the lovely stuff about adopting a dog, but what can happen. What is the potential? Let's say if somebody doesn't make a good decision, or they change their mind, or they come to the realization that they're in over their heads, possibly. What happens to those dogs in your neck of the woods? So
if an adoption fails, or you don't want to foster anymore?
No, in terms of an adoption. So here's the thing. If you're fostering a dog, it's pretty straightforward. If you change your mind about fostering that dog, for the most part, you can return that dog to the organization. And that's kind of like fostering is meant to be short term, right? On the fostering side, if you change your mind about that particular dog, I don't really think there's going to be too much of an issue. I think, Megan, what a lot of people might be interested in is, let's say I adopt a dog and then it turns out that this dog is a nightmare and it's not fitting into my life and I can't get anything done and my partner wants to leave me and, worst case scenario.
The best case scenario, which is still a pretty bad scenario, is that dog would come back to the shelter. It would stay there for an undisclosed amount of time. When an animal re-enters the shelter system, it is very stressful. No matter the age, it is hard on a dog to come back to a shelter environment after being in a home. Even the most adaptable dog is going to struggle. So best case scenario is they come back, they're only traumatized for a month or two before they get readopted. Unfortunately, the worst case scenario would be they are euthanized, because if you bring a dog back to the shelter, it's basically a strike against it. Especially because a lot of people don't want to say, like it just wasn't the right fit or our life changed. They kind of put the blame on the animal. Frequently in shelters and rescues, that's a strike against that dog. So unless it is a no-kill shelter, which is not required here in the US, like no state requires it. Some cities require it, but the majority don't. So each individual shelter or rescue gets to decide. It's not uncommon that if a dog comes back into the shelter system, it will be euthanized. So that's, again, there's a pretty big price tag for it not working out.
Keep in mind, Megan is in Tennessee, so it's going to be a lot different depending on where you live. I can speak to Canada. Euthanization isn't as common in Canada, although it does happen. I think what, Megan, you're trying to say is there's a lot of risk to that dog, but not a lot of risk to that person or family. So if you change your mind and you adopt a dog and you're like, okay, well, they were a really cute puppy, but now they're huge and they're tearing everything up and they have separation anxiety and all the rest of it. And I'm not down for this anymore. I don't I wanted that cute little puppy. I don't want this big problem, and they're not adorable anymore. That's the other thing that I think people should consider, especially if you're getting a dog for the first time. Puppies don't stay puppies very long. They grow super fast, like insanely fast. So if you see a dog at 8 weeks old and then you blink, that dog will be twice the size. That puppy will grow very, very quickly. Understand that there are serious consequences in terms of the mental stability or effect on that particular dog. And, in some cases could even lead to euthanasia. So it's very serious in terms of the responsibility that people have to make a good decision. And again, if you're new to having a dog, I think fostering is a great way. And if you aren't too sure about fostering, at least dog sit at the very bare minimum before you go make a big decision to get a puppy or an adult dog. Now, I have a very soft spot for senior dogs. If I see a senior dog anywhere, they kind of melt my heart. And seeing a senior dog is something very special, because I think a lot of people don't think about it, is that dogs don't lead very long lives. So if a dog makes it to a senior level, that's a huge accomplishment. There's a lot of benefits to getting a senior dog, I think, that people are missing out on. Like, let me tell you something. Megan is like a pioneer, because she sees all the things that I see, but she makes it known. I was really moved, Megan, by the work that you were doing with senior dogs, specifically in Tennessee and at some of the places that you were volunteering at. And I really want people to understand that one person like Megan, who's super special and who cares about these dogs, can make a huge difference. So let's talk about these senior dogs, because they're at risk. You know what I mean? When you go to a shelter, when you go to a rescue or a humane society, the senior dogs are the ones who get looked at last. And my heart is breaking a little bit just thinking about it. Let's talk about your experience with the senior dogs in the shelters that you volunteered at, and some of the initiatives that you took to help these senior dogs get adopted.
By the way, blushing. Thank you.
I have that effect on women. I'm just kidding.
When I was in undergrad, I had adopted a 2-year-old dog from the shelter I volunteered at. And he was one of those dogs that he just needed a buddy. I started looking at the shelter I volunteered at, and there was this dog. Her name was BB, and she was 7. And I didn't know how long she'd been at the shelter, but I could tell like she had been there a little bit longer. So I went to meet her, and I said, again, I wasn't really concerned that she was a senior. There was no reason for me to be incredibly attached to that concept. I was just looking for a dog that would hang out with my dog when I was in class. So I asked if I can see BB, and the front desk person goes, "Are you sure you're here to see BB?" And I was like, "Yes." I was like, "Did someone else adopt her?" My heart sank. And she's like, "No, she's been here 9 months and no one's ever asked to see her." Just hearing the person's response to, one, being in shock and awe that someone even wanted to meet a 7-year-old dog, which isn't that old. And then 2, telling me no one else had asked to see her in 9 months. And then I started wondering, well, I volunteer here. Why haven't I met this dog? It's because she was kept in the free roaming cat room. So like the room where just cats run free, she was chilling in there with them. So she waddles out, and of course, it's love at first sight. But I got her home, and she immediately just went and laid down in a bed. She slept through the first night. She never once had an accident in the house. My dog was happy to have a buddy. They would just chill during the day, so I didn't feel guilty about going to class. And then, she liked to play. She was still playful. She'd hang out in the yard. She'd roll on her back. But she didn't come with all these other things. And I thought, okay, this is the answer. You still get an awesome dog, but you don't have all the stuff that's usually hard about bringing home a dog. I was also, because I was in college, I realized for me, I didn't know what my life was going to be like in, 2 to 3 years when I graduated with my bachelor's. And so I liked the idea of not having a 15-year commitment. My one dog that I adopted when he was 2, I'd kind of locked him in, we're in it for the long haul. But I wasn't sure I was ready to keep doing that. So a senior was perfect for my lifestyle because I knew my life was going to change. I didn't know how drastically, but I also knew that what happened 5 years from now might not impact a senior dog. So BB is kind of what started it for me. And when I realized there was this treasure trove of amazing animals and no one thought of them like that, they were labeled hard to adopt. They stayed in shelters longer. I started doing research, and it was just one of those things. There were not a lot of shelter programs, a lot of, shelter shout outs for seniors. And I thought, okay, so how do we change this? How do we make people see that this is like a hot commodity? This is, the Tickle Me Elmo toy that everyone wants at Christmas. And so I started kind of thinking about how I could help more seniors because I can't adopt them all. And I went to our shelter and I said, hey, there's a thing called Senior Adoption Month. It's in November every year. Could I do some things for it? It will be 100% done by volunteers. Nothing extra has to come from any faculty, staff, nothing has to come, no money has to come out of the budget. Will you just let me feature seniors, do some senior adoption events, just basically like get people thinking differently about seniors? How do we convince people that there's something they're missing out on, basically? And they said, sure. We did get 11 seniors adopted that first month we did this. It was just me and one other person that helped me with the senior adoption events. But the biggest victory for me is that someone will say, hey, now I'm going to only adopt seniors. Or, hey, I just adopted my first senior and I'm never going back. Because you realize you truly have changed that person's way of looking at seniors. They now understand what a gift seniors are. So we just kind of continued to do that each year. And each year we did better and better as far as getting the seniors adopted. Something else that was also really cool was no seniors were coming back. So in the shelter system, especially, dogs are returned a lot. A lot of people will adopt a puppy and it comes back 5 years later. A lot of people will adopt a 2-year-old dog and it comes back 6 months later, that kind of thing. So in the 5 years we did it, we had one senior brought back, and it was a very extreme, crazy circumstance this poor family experienced, and we were able to get him back out and readopted within a week. So again, as far as him being stressed out, it was as minimal as possible. And then once I kind of realized that, just the power of social media, at the time the shelter wasn't doing a lot of that. And so I started blogging about my personal experiences, pros and cons of seniors, that kind of thing, telling the story of BB, just kind of saying where it all started. I guess people identifying on a personal basis of what it looks like to adopt a senior. I've found that, whether you're doing something directly with a shelter or rescue, or you're an advocate, at big events, or you advocate and do things online and have a community and, provide resources when someone says, I'm really struggling with this problem with my senior. So I've kind of just built a little network where we're able to help seniors now all over the world, kind of.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And here's one thing I want people out there listening or watching on YouTube, is that every single person can make a difference in a dog's life. And you don't have to, go to extraordinary lengths. So whether you are supporting people who are already doing this kind of work through social media, because one of the biggest benefits of social media is that it helps spread the word far and wide about these dogs that are in need of a home. Everybody can do their part. All right. So don't discount your efforts and don't discount the initiative that you can take. And the difference is amazing. And if you can go out there and you can help somebody who's helping these dogs already, maybe not take on the whole thing yourself, but you can make a difference. And these differences they translate into lives. One of the things that we talked about earlier is this concept of basing your decision or considering how old a dog is in terms of matching it up to your lifestyle. And I would easily say that a senior dog, and when I say senior, Megan, like, correct me if I'm wrong, anything like kind of like 5 years and up, I'm gonna say it in plain terms. Like, a senior dog is gonna be a lot more chill, right? You want to hang out with a dog and watch some TV, maybe go for a walk or a jog, or just, do whatever, go to work, come back, whatever, take it to the, cottage or to your family's place over the holidays. It's gonna be super chill, like super flexible, super chill. Obviously not every dog is the same. So I'm making blanket statements here, but understand that in terms of just age, so not considering anything else, if we're just talking about age, a senior dog is going to be super easy to take care of, relatively speaking, when you compare it to a puppy, which is on the extreme end of difficulty and amount of time, energy, patience, etc. The younger dogs, and I'll tell you from experience, because I've literally worked with thousands of dogs, the dogs who have the most problems are the adolescent dogs. So think about a teenager at home, okay? They are coming into their own, okay? Everybody remembers being a teenager at some point. You're very rambunctious. You're going to challenge authority. You're going to challenge yourself, and so on and so forth. So the terrible twos are like a real thing with dogs. And adolescence lasts for, it could be like from 8 months to like 3 years old. But then after that, it gets easier, and you actually get to enjoy so much more companionship and joy with your life, with your dog. I think seniors are getting a bit of a, like, these are like the gems that are hidden in shelters and in rescues. And if you want a dog and you want to experience all the great things about having a dog with the least amount of disruption, we're talking about older dogs, like, so 5 and up. I love the initiative that Megan took. I love the fact that she brought some real eyes onto this issue. I think a lot of shelters experience problems with adoption of older dogs, but I don't think it's something that they really are communicating well to the general public. So Megan's initiative was amazing. And what I would challenge everybody out there to do is to go to your nearest shelter or humane society and ask them to let you spend some time with a senior dog. So I'm not going to tell you this is what you should do in terms of adoption. However, what I would encourage every single one of you out there to do is just go spend some time, right? So take a page from Megan's book, spend a little bit of time, maybe take that dog for a little bit of a walk, and see for yourself. Just experience it. Because those young dogs, those puppies, those adolescent dogs, they're going to get adopted pretty much all day long. But those more senior dogs who are in these shelters, in the humane societies, at these rescues, even the staff might not make a recommendation for you to explore that dog as an option. So if there's anybody out there who is considering this, go spend some time with a more senior dog. Experience it for yourself. Be skeptical. I encourage people to be skeptical all the time, okay? Don't take my word for it. But if it is something where you go, you experience it, maybe you dog sit for a friend who has a senior dog, maybe you go to a shelter who's got a senior dog, and just spend some time and make up your own mind. Maybe it's the right decision for you. I don't know. Maybe it isn't the right decision for you. Maybe you do want to go out and get that puppy or that super young dog. But if you give these senior dogs a chance, I think, the chances that you're going to have an experience like Megan is quite high. It would be such a beautiful thing if you look at what happened in that 1 month. So 11 senior dogs adopted in 1 month. And Megan, tell me, in terms of your experience with that specific shelter, what was their kind of track record like before with senior dogs?
So I actually did the metrics after our 3rd year of doing senior month. So that first year of the 11 dogs, that was 1 month's worth of work and advertising and advocacy. And after that, senior adoptions went up 38%. The following year, when we did it more throughout the year, we had senior Saturdays where I would feature, we were able to incorporate seniors in our more normal day-to-day events and activities, they went up 52%. Yeah. And again, it was, this wasn't costing the shelter anything. This was volunteers donating as much time as they wanted. And I think what you said about just spending some time with seniors and just being open to it. Again, I didn't go looking for a senior. I didn't go looking, to find this amazing creature. It was just sort of there, and I was open to it, having that experience. And what you were saying, about everyone can do something, it really does matter, just spending 5 minutes. And one of the cool things about seniors is you can usually just go and like sit in their kennel with them and hang out. They might not even care about a walk, except to go out and go to the bathroom. They would probably just be happy to like sit and chill with you. But also, as far as 5 minutes goes, if you're on social media all the time and you have a lot of followers and you post a story on Instagram about a senior looking for a home, that does matter. I can say from personal experience, everything doesn't have to happen in person at a shelter. The word gets out. The more ways we're trying to get the word out and the more people you're telling in different ways is great. And so it really can be a 5-minute thing. If that's all the time you have, it matters, and it does add up. Again, it doesn't even have to be 1,000 different people giving 5 minutes. It just takes one person, the right person, seeing something, or hearing about a dog. As far as spending individual time, and then also as far as trying to help seniors, I didn't do anything drastic. I didn't do anything miraculous. I just did what I could. And there's always someone doing something more. And that's okay. Like, it still matters what I do, and it still matters what everyone else is doing. To help seniors, to love seniors, you don't have to adopt every senior you ever meet. If you want to adopt one senior and that's all you can take for a while, that's okay. You don't have to be a crazy person like me who, always has multiple seniors in her house.
No, you're not crazy. You just have a big heart. Listen, if everybody had as big a heart as you, we wouldn't have dogs in shelters in the first place, right? If you're considering a dog, and when we talked about a lot of different things today during the podcast about, what you should think about or consider before getting a dog. But if you do get to that decision, and trust me, I love dogs more than anyone, but there are some people I meet that I'm just like, maybe a dog isn't right for you. But if you have made that decision and you really do want to get a dog and you've done your due diligence, spend some time with a senior dog. At least consider it. And if you still decide that a puppy is the right thing for you, then go get a puppy. Like, there's nothing stopping you. But these senior dogs or older dogs that are in shelters need some love. They need it. Okay. And when you see their faces, and I'm going to put Mosley's face right here. Like, this is going to be gratuitous. Okay. Because Mosley is almost 14. Mosley is like the poster child for senior dogs. He's been featured on a few Instagram accounts that have like a sexy senior day. Mosley is very much a sexy senior. So I want you to look at this picture right here. Look, I'm going to put a picture right here, Megan, so you can see, of Mosley. And I want you to look at that dog at 14 years old and say like, no, I wouldn't want to adopt a dog like that. So there's lots of benefits. You're going to skip all the puppy madness. Not that I don't love puppies. I do love puppies, especially other people's puppies. You're going to skip all the adolescent problems, the challenges, the pulling, all the different stuff that comes with limitless energy. And I am being pretty literal. It is unreal how much energy younger dogs have. You're going to get all the good things with a senior dog. You're going to get that fun companion to take on a jog. You're going to have that really chill companion when you want to cuddle, somebody on the couch and, somebody to greet you when you get home. The whole idea of house training a puppy is like a bit of a nightmare to me. Like, it's a lot of work. So you're going to skip all that and you're going to get right to the good stuff. Definitely consider it. It's a beautiful thing. And if you if you love dogs in general and you're not looking to adopt, there's still lots of organizations and individuals like Megan that you can support, help with distribution of like sharing the word. Because, somebody's going to see one of these senior dogs at a shelter and they're going to be like, oh my God, look at how cute that dog is. And they're going to go adopt it. And you are going to help save that dog's life. And I know that sounds dramatic, but when it comes to life and death, what you have to understand, and Megan, you can speak to this as well. Dogs are relying on us human beings to save their lives, right? We're the ones who are responsible for them being here in the first place in some way or another. And it is up to us to help them to save their lives, whether it's making the right decision in the first place and adopting the right dog so that you're not returning that dog, or whether it's saying, you know what, I have enough room in my heart for one of these senior dogs. Or just saying like, look, I'm going to like Megan's post. I'm going to share it on my story. That's helping it. Every little bit helps.
We've always got a senior. Yeah. We've always got someone we're trying to get the news out about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So we're going to move on to some Instagram questions. What I do before any podcast recording is I will post on my social media accounts and we'll gather some questions from the audience prior to recording, and we'll do our very best to answer them. And we've already answered a bunch of them throughout the podcast. But Megan, is there any Instagram questions that you want to answer for the audience?
Yes, I actually had a few that were really good. Someone asked what was the best part of adopting a senior dog, especially compared to younger ones. And I love that question because it kind of goes to my original love of seniors. It feels good to help an animal that needs you that much. I'm not going to lie. So the first time a senior picks up a toy to play or initiates play for the first time, it is one of the coolest feelings in the world. It's just, I jump and squeal all the time because of my seniors. My dog Cotton that I adopted almost a year ago, she was terrified of dogs when I adopted her. She hated to be outside because if she heard a dog bark, she'd want to come inside. The first time I saw her play with another dog, I literally was like the crazy person in my front yard, jumping up and screaming and clapping because that was a huge milestone. And so you get to experience all these things that are really remarkable that you don't get with younger dogs. What's the biggest challenge you've faced with senior adoptions? This is also a good one. So saying goodbye is the hardest part. The other challenge is towards the end of some of my seniors, they require a lot of care. And being a primary caregiver to an animal that is depending on you, it does get tiring. It does sort of push you to the limits physically and emotionally, right? Because you're seeing this family member you love, go through something. That's very hard. It's also hard. It's kind of hard like it would be for, if you're having to deal with a puppy all the time because you don't maybe sleep as well, you're higher worry and stress. For me, that would be probably the hardest thing I've encountered. What about you? What has been hard about yours getting older?
It's tough to see them slow down for sure. And now, listen, every dog is different. So Mosley is 14. Okay. The 14 is that's beyond senior. That's like
we call them super seniors.
Super senior. So one of my friends calls him Grandpa Mosley. Right. So it is hard to see them age and to see their health start to deteriorate, but understand that that's going to happen with any dog that you adopt. Okay. They're going to be with you their whole lives. Most of that is going to be joy and love. But you're right, Megan, there is pain that goes along with it because whenever you love your dog, you are making yourself vulnerable. In fact, somebody asked me once, if you've had dogs die before and it's heartbreaking, why do you keep doing it? Why would you have any relationship in your life that brings you untold amounts of joy and emotional support. And I can't even put it into words. Yes, pain comes with it, but understand that it's part of life. Getting a dog isn't like, buying an inanimate object. So they have a life, they have feelings. Eventually they're going to die, just like you and I don't like to talk about it, but it is an eventuality. I've known lots of people who've had dogs from puppies who, developed genetic disorders, and they unfortunately passed away tragically young. So there are no guarantees in terms of if I get a younger dog, it's going to have a very long lifespan. You never know what's going to happen. Even if they are super healthy, accidents do happen, things transpire. So dealing with the emotional turmoil of losing a pet is something that happens to everyone, right? So I don't see any real difference in terms of a senior dog or a younger dog. That's a risk that you're going to take either way. And it's a vulnerability that comes with it. But the amount of joy and love that you get from your dog is undescribable and immense. I mean, I can't even think about it. Like, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is, like, I see the dogs and I just, like, my heart just, like, sings. Like, it just, they bring so much joy to my life. I would say, like, the most difficult thing is just seeing their health deteriorate, seeing their joints kind of, they don't work as well. Mosley is very slow in everything that he does. So that's a little bit difficult because I do have a younger dog as well who's about 7 years old. And, he can't really keep up with the younger dogs as well as he used to, but that's normal. Like, look, I'm getting older. Like, my joints start to hurt, here and there and that kind of thing too. So it's not that bad. Everybody is in a different situation, and everybody's lives are completely different. So what works for me or what works for Megan, it may not work for you. So I don't think Megan is saying don't get a puppy, go get a senior dog. I think what we're both saying is that there's not enough attention. There's not enough information. These dogs aren't being, I don't want to say promoted, because that's the wrong word, but they're not being talked about as much as the younger dogs. If you see a puppy on Instagram and you ooh and you ah, that's normal, right? But if you see a dog that's like maybe 7 or 8 years old, I mean, I would still ooh and ah, but I love dogs more than anything, right? But so it's just a matter of considering those types of things. So Megan, one last thing. I want to talk about real quick your advice to shelters, rescues.
I think, and this sounds so cheesy, but it's true, your attitude, how you as a shelter, how you as volunteers, staff, adoption advocates, the energy, the word choice you use and that you put out there matters, because the way you look at these animals is how you're encouraging others to look at them. So if you treat seniors like they're not as important or they're, harder to adopt, well, that's what you're telling other people to think of them too. The thing I have noticed personally is how you, again, advertise is not the right word, but how you and promote, but how you hype up these seniors matters, because that's telling everyone else how they should think of them. Also having a specific day. So like we used to do Senior Saturday. So having a specific day where that's who you feature as a senior looking for a home, that can be helpful because people know about it. It just sort of gets people into their natural way of thinking. It gets in there without them even realizing. And then before you know it, they're open to considering a senior, just like they were open to considering a 2-year-old dog or a puppy. The other thing is try to get with, because shelters and humane societies and rescues always don't seem to have enough funding and enough staff. So use social media. It's free. Ask your volunteers your volunteers can really make or break something like this, because you need people that are passionate about seniors, the cause you're trying to get out there. So ask them if they'll do your social media for Seniors on Senior Saturday. Again, I never was employed by the shelter I did all this for. I was totally a volunteer. The other thing is do events at local places. So I used to have every week, we would do a senior on local news stations. They do a weekly segment on a radio station here. Ask a local business if they'll let you have a senior sponsored adoption event at their facility once everyone can do all that again. Just get the word out, focus on your community, right? So start small, don't think globally, don't even think statewide. Just what can you do in your community to promote the concept of adopting seniors? You just need people to be open to it and be willing to think about it. And it doesn't necessarily take a lot of extra resources. That's kind of one of the key things, I think, is think about things that are sustainable and that are not going to cost your organization any extra funds. And again, it really is attitude. I can't convince everyone to adopt a senior, but I can convince a lot of people just by explaining how seniors are, how amazing they are.
Listen, there's something that I tell people all the time is passion is catchy. Okay. So if I get really excited about something and I start talking about a senior dog, and I'm very excited about that dog, and that type of enthusiasm translates extremely well to other people who are maybe a bit skeptical or they're new to the idea. I think that is a fantastic advice. And I would encourage any shelters or rescues or humane societies who are watching this to leave a comment below in terms of what your initiatives have been. Because I think one thing that's amazing is the sharing of ideas. And that's one of the main reasons why the podcast exists in the first place, is that when I heard about what Megan was doing, it's like a light bulb went off and going like, why don't other shelters or rescues, or maybe they are doing it. And that's the thing. Like, I don't know. And if the community gets together and says, look, this is what I did, and it really worked really well. And Megan says, hey, guess what? This is what I did for senior dogs, and this worked really well, and so on and so forth. So instead of working in isolation, if we can share some of these ideas, and these rescues or shelters, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They can take Megan's example and say, look, like we know this works, right? And this isn't something that's overly difficult or requires any special tools or expenses. We can do this kind of thing, and we know it works because Megan showed us it works. And then somebody else pipes in, right, Megan, and says, guess what? Look what I did. I made a bandana that said, I'm old and I'm sexy and I know it, or something, whatever. I don't care, right?
I'm going to take that idea.
You can
That's
have
a good
that one for free. Okay. Or whatever the case may be. And the sharing of ideas between these types of organizations, because you're right, Megan, almost every single organization that works with rescue dogs or tries to adopt dogs struggles for resources. Okay. I did a podcast with the Toronto Humane Society, which is the biggest here in Toronto, and they have the most amount of support and resources. Even they struggle. Okay. There's always more need for people to get involved and to help out. But even within the community, to share ideas, to encourage people who may think like, oh, okay, well, we have the senior dog. Nobody wants him, so we're just going to leave him be or whatever. And that's just not the case, right? Megan, I can't thank you enough for the work that you've already done for these senior dogs. And it really does warm my heart quite a lot, and very admirable work. And I personally thank you. And for everybody out there, comment below and share your ideas and your experiences. And thank you so much to Megan for for dealing with the technical nightmare that is this podcast. And thank you to everyone out there for watching and listening, and your continued patience and support is very much appreciated. Any final thoughts, Megan? Any final words for the audience?
Thank you for listening and thinking about seniors. That's kind of the first step.
Awesome. Until next time, if you love your dog, take them for a walk. Take care and good night.